Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, and Giallo enthusiasts. This is Tanner Leeser, your host for all things Giallo here on The King and Giallo, and we are doing another unscripted talking head movie review. And if you can see me, you can tell I'm actually in a completely different space, but you know, you make do with what you can. So anyways, we are talking about the 1972 Giallo film Who Killed the Prosecutor and Why, directed by Giuseppe Vari, who was going under the name Joseph Warren. So yeah, I will be very, very brief about this one. In short, the IMDb plot description says Nino is a glamour photographer who witnesses a murder of a prosecutor being constructed to look like an automobile accident. Lou Castel is our anti-hero lead. I mean, he's just morally kind of corrupt. He takes these photos and then he goes to his friend who's Uncle Fifi, who is a local pornographer, and he is a little affiliated with the local mafia as well. And so they devise a plan where, okay, we'll print these and go around and see if you can go to the newspapers and see how much they will offer you them in order to publish them, or you can go to someone who might pay you to get rid of them, to throw this under the rug. And I would say hijinks ensue, but it's not quite that funny. It's funny enough, there is actually some humor that is in the script, but it never quite lands at all. But in a nutshell, yeah. So it is Lou Castel and his girlfriend, Beba Lončar. These two do have some characterization within the first, 20 minutes of the movie, 30 minutes. She is a model. She hates that she has to do these certain types of photo sessions for Uncle Fifi in order to make some money, get some exposure. But again, it is what it is. But she's ready to move on past that. And Lou Castel, he supports this, but in order to get some money to help them get going, he decides that this is probably a great idea to actually try and sell these incriminating photos and potentially blackmail people who might be involved with the crime. And along with that, we have Adolfo Celi, who is the main detective looking into this, and right away he can tell that this is a setup. This is a staged accident. He notices that even though the car burst into flames, I mean, it was set on fire, but he can tell the engine was turned off. And so, wow, this guy managed to turn off the car's engine before he crashed, and then it still exploded. That seems completely improbable. That's essentially the setup for the movie. So I will just give you my thoughts on the movie as well as some things that I found to be standout. First off, I will say that the movie it's not bad, but it's also not really great. If I was to give this a letter in like a ranking, it might be like a C or a D. You know, it's not particularly... Okay, I'll put it this way. If C is like, I don't really care about it one way or the other, it's not particularly great, but it's not particularly bad, I'd say, yeah, it might be a step below that. It does remind me a bit of the Cat o' Nine Tails with the photography element, and someone is trying to get rid of these photographs. There's also a lot of blow up the conversation and blow out because of that as well, someone witnessing an event that they shouldn't have. And in terms of Giallo films that I can compare it to, there's a few I can make these comparisons for, and it's not so much that they're similar in plot, but it's similar in how I received them. So the first one I think about is Death Occurred Last Night, which doesn't super operate like a Giallo film. It's way more of a crime thriller, more of a possibly even poliziesque, but not totally. And this movie similarly is more of a crime thriller, possibly a poliziesque. It does have enough elements that kind of keep it under the umbrella of being a Giallo. And both of those movies, I feel, they had a fairly good setup, and they had a good enough cast, good enough directors, good enough writers. You know, everybody involved was fairly competent. They just didn't quite do it. They kind of struggled to get over the finish line. Again, I wouldn't say either of the movies are bad, but they leave you wanting more. You can check this movie out, and it's not bad. It's just okay. It goes for kind of everything. The directing, there will be moments where it's like, that's a great shot, or that's a great moment that is put together. There's certainly a lot of stuff that does stand out, and I will remember it visually in my mind. But between those, there's a lot of just fairly pedestrian shots and pedestrian framing and a lot of uninspired work. The music is serviceable. It gets the job done, but it doesn't really leave an impression. There is a few moments. There is a moment where we watch as Uncle Fifi gets attacked from behind, where you hear the piano in the lower notes sounding like planned chaos. I don't know how else to put it. It sounds chaotic, but it's very much a arpeggio. It gives this sense of dread. And so that was probably the most standout aspect in terms of the music. The writing is not that bad, but it definitely seems better in the first part. And as it goes on, it kind of feels like things that were set up either got abandoned. So like I said, the characterization of Lou Castel and Beba Lončar, more Beba Lončar, it kind of feels like it gets dropped, doesn't get focused on. Lou Castel also, his character just becomes flat at a certain point. He's just driving the plot forward because he's greedy, essentially. And Lou Castel, I do like him. I really, really like him in Orgasmo. I really, really like him in A Bullet for the General. But here he's just forgettable and unremarkable. Adolfo Celi, kind of the same thing. He usually plays a smarmy, sort of shadowy person. You're not sure if they're a good guy or a bad guy. You're not sure if you can trust them. Oftentimes at the end, you find out you can't. He's really good at playing a villain. And in this, he's the detective. And I was wondering if he was involved because it's Adolfo Celi. Yeah, he also, I mean, he's fairly competent. There's kind of an ongoing bit with him being obsessed with a stamp collection, which again, it was more of a kind of a little, oh, that's a cute little quirk, I guess, versus it being an actual joke, like a funny joke. Massimo Serato as Uncle Fifi is probably the best performance. The first time you see him, he's doing a photo shoot for like an ancient Roman period, kind of Caligula. I'm trying to avoid saying the word. It's supposed to be a very frivolous, sexual encounter with many people. And he's like ordering them to like, get into it, more passion. Yes, you like it, hold it, take the picture. I really enjoyed that. He seemed like he was that actual person who knew what he was doing. He knew how to direct models and performers in service of this photo shoot. So that was pretty cool. And then beyond that, he's also just really good as the person that Lou Castel goes to for advice in this, and he's driving it along, and even he gets to a point where he says, well, technically I didn't actually do anything illegal. I'm not aiding and abetting technically. That was all good. Standout moments. The opening, I like the opening with the fake accident and them setting fire to the car, and when it keeps cutting back to Lou Castel taking the photographs. But again, like I said, it's actually fairly derivative. This has been done before, and it will be done after it. What the movie does have going for itself is, in terms of a giallo, it's a unique plot. I can't recall this exact thing being done in this way before. And that's what I think might actually hurt the movie, is there is a real investigation, but it's a police investigation, and kind of sidesteps the usual things that would make it more overtly giallo. The main character is not really interested at all. He's just trying to get money. So he's just trying to sell these photos. And perhaps if one of the characters in his circle of friends, in his sphere of influence, were under police scrutiny and they had to do what they could to remove the suspicion, that might have helped a little bit. But for me also, the reveal of who it is, I felt was very weak. On one hand, it kind of is set up, on one hand, is a little obvious it's that person. Now, at first, it doesn't seem obvious, but especially when you go back and you rewatch it, the scenes with this character, and if I recall, this character doesn't show up until later, like either about 40 minutes in or about 55 minutes in is the first time I remember seeing this character. And they're kind of the only suspicious person, because there's mafia involvement, there's actual gangsters that are involved with what's going on, but it's like there's their leader, the Don Salvatore. Well, he's not going to be going around whacking people doing this, because that's not how that works. You would have soldiers do it for you. So it's not him who's the black-gloved killer, but he could be the mastermind. But in terms of his inner circle, it's I guess it could be his lawyer, but that, again, also wouldn't make sense. Why would someone like that get their hands dirty? And so when you meet this other guy, it's kind of feels like, in terms of the plot, it's like, well, I guess it could be him, but you don't really have a motive. You just think, I guess it could be him. And funny enough, these scenes with this character and with Inspector Vezzi, the way it is shot and the way it will throw focus onto this character seems oddly specific and suspicious. And things like that, I always think, okay, either it's doing this for dramatic effect, which is very valid, or it's doing it because it's trying to hint that it is the killer. And in a movie like this, they didn't, like I said, they didn't really give us many other options. Everybody else seemed a little too hot. It's not gonna, it can't be the Don, can it? It can't be his lawyer. Could it? Is it the detective, maybe? Maybe it's Uncle Fifi, who's in a wheelchair. Maybe he's actually not paralyzed. Maybe that's a lie. So there are some people, but you definitely have to be thinking, okay, there has to be, the movie is lying to me in some way, and how it's portraying something. Or perhaps it's just this character. We just don't know what their motive could be. And I don't really like when that happens. And so by the very end, we find out who it is, and this person gets caught. They're saying, like, to his face as this person is handcuffed, what their motive was, why they did it, and they're completely backfilling everything. They're backloading everything. They're just telling us, yeah, this was everything that you didn't know, everything that the audience didn't know. And I don't like that. And it's funny because the fifth chord kind of does that. And the fifth chord is always talked about in a lot of Giallo circles as being, you know, one of the best, one of the standouts. And I don't recall if I talked about that when I did get to the fifth chord, when I did do my review for that. But as much as I do love that movie, when you do actually receive the information about the killer and his motive and why he did what he did, it does feel like, okay, well, how was I supposed to know any of that? I like when there is so many red herrings and so many possible motives. Those always seem to be the best because you can actually kind of think of like, well, it could be this person for this reason. It could be that person for this reason. It could be this person for these number of reasons. But when it's like, well, I guess it could be that person, I just don't know why. And then it's like, well, this is why. That just always feels a little sloppy, and it feels like the writers just kind of made it up as they went along, or they're like, well, we'll reveal it later. We don't really actually have to drop those pieces in. So yeah, Who Killed the Prosecutor and Why? I did upload it on YouTube, so it should be available there for however long. I will say also the version that I uploaded and the version which is the same version I watched, which I found on a Russian streaming website, which are always fun. The movie runs about an hour and 29 minutes, and I know there is an international version, which is, I think, about an hour and 32, but the only difference that I could find online about what it is that there were hardcore shots inserted, and there is 2 or 3 instances of nudity in the version that I saw, and I know there was the photography scene, which was which was fairly risque. There is a scene where we first meet the Don, and he's with a sex worker, and they finished up, so it could be something before that. I don't really know. Things like that don't really matter because it was just added to kind of excite people. So yeah, but anyways, that is Who Killed the Prosecutor and Why. Have you seen it yet? If not, go ahead and check it out. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. I will do my best to get back to you. What do you think of the movie? Do you think it's pretty good? Do you think it's lackluster? Do you hate it? Let me know. And I'm excited to hear back because a lot of times you guys actually really enjoy some of these more rarer films, more so than I do. Funny enough, I have not found one that I thought was outright bad. Just not my cup of tea, or just harder to get into, and I do think this one was a little harder to get into. Do I see this one being set up for a restoration, like by Vinegar Syndrome? Probably. They've done ones that I think are even below Who Killed the Prosecutor and Why, so that wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, anyways, this is Tanner Leeser for The King and Giallo, and if nothing else, I'll see you next time.
He went to buy me something to eat because I was famished. I swear, I beg you,